Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on Mastering SAP Automation with Stonebranch UAC. Orchestrate your entire SAP landscape and beyond. Whether you run your SAP on-prem, in the cloud, or across hybrid environments, this session will show you how to unlock observability, self-service, and operational efficiency at scale. Witness the future of SAP automation. I'm Lauren Tansini from Stonebranch, and I will be your moderator today. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few things. This session is designed to be interactive between you and the speaker. If you have any questions, click on the Q&A tab in the dashboard and submit your questions, and we will answer them at the end of the session. If we don't get to your question, we will follow up with you afterwards. Additionally, in the right-hand corner of your screen, you will find some handouts related to this session. With all that said, it's my pleasure to introduce the Stonebranch speaker in today's session, Nils Buer, VP of Solution Management at Stonebranch. Let's go ahead and get started. Nils, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. Okay, today I'm going to speak about SAP and how you can automate and orchestrate your SAP landscape and beyond. This is just a draft again. It's just the agenda which I'm going to show. So first of all, I'm going to talk a bit about the general functionality. I'm going to say how we're going to connect to RISE on SAP. Then I'm going to give you some examples how you can orchestrate the SAP components, but also other systems and applications which are involved in your SAP landscape. Then I'm going to give you a use case how you can dynamically schedule SAP jobs using SAP Cloud ALM. We will talk a bit about the transition. And then point number 6, I think that's the most interesting one. I'm going to demo all the stuff which I've talked about in the points before. Yeah, who uses actually SAP? So SAP is used by almost any industry, if it's finance and insurance industry, manufacturing, healthcare, etc. Stonebranch has customers in all of these industries. And I would say all of these industries use our software in a similar way to schedule the SAP jobs. The interesting thing is when you talk about SAP, it's not that you're talking to a single person or a single profile. You're talking to a lot of different roles. So you have the SAP basis teams, you have the developers that, for example, develop the ABAP programs. Then you have the people who operate the platform, so the scheduling team, for example. And you have the SAP business users that, of course, wants to do also things by themselves. So they don't want to rely all the time on the scheduling platform operations team. So the challenges which are there is self-service. And when I mean self-service, it's really self-service for different teams and different profiles. So an SAP business user has different self-service requirements than a developer. A developer might want to connect to a GitHub or an Azure DevOps system, where an SAP business user wants to have a easy to understand GUI where he can schedule his daily reports. The solution must be high available. So if the SAP system is down, not the SAP system, but if the scheduling system is down, then you cannot run any more SAP jobs. So it needs to be a high available solution which can be accessed by the individual teams. It's also important that you can deploy fast new developments. So you need to also consider new concepts like DevOps, a DevOps approach to generate your SAP jobs and orchestration use cases. Yeah, what needs then to be automated? When I say automated, it's not only automation, but it's also orchestration. So orchestration of other applications. So first of all, you have the classical SAP ERP processes like ABAP job scheduling with variants, dynamic variants, temporary variants, and so on. Then you have the business warehouse process change, info packages, and so on. But you also have newer technologies like the BTP platform, for example. We will talk about the BTP platform more in detail later on. Then you have your data warehouse processes. So can be SAP data warehouse processes like SAP Data Services. You might want to create reports with SAP Business Objects. But you will also have a lot of external applications like Qlik, Informatica, just to name a few. So when you have an automation solution, you need to cover the SAP plus all the applications around SAP to cover. The last point, and this is the business technology platform. So I think all of you know ABAP scheduling on your ERP system or your S4HANA system. So now SAP has also a cloud platform, they always had, but now it's really something where they put a lot of efforts on. And you can schedule on the BTP platform, you need to schedule also new applications. So one of the applications which is heavily used by our customers on the BTP platform is SAP Integrated Business Process Planning. It was formerly also available as on-premise application. Now it's on the BTP platform, and you need to run those planning jobs. Then you usually have also cloud data services, which in many cases works together with integrated business process planning. And what's new, and we have just returned from the SAP Sapphire, where Stonebranch is also a platinum sponsor. So is SAP Databricks. They even call it now SAP Databricks, because SAP has a very tight partnership now with Databricks. And of course, you need to run those Databricks jobs to connect external data sources and SAP data sources and run nice machine learning and AI-based workflows. Then SAP has also two additional platforms on the BTP. One is the Kyma platform. This is a Kubernetes platform. So this is similar to OpenShift or Azure AKS or Amazon EKS or GKE. So Kyma is the one from SAP, and it's also open source, and it works similar like all the other Kubernetes platform. And Stonebranch is very strong in running these SAP Kubernetes jobs, for example, on the Kubernetes platform. Then we have things like Analytics Cloud, which is also on BTP platform. And we have the second platform. So I talked about Kyma. We have also the SAP Cloud Foundry platform. So customers can, for example, deploy their own applications in Node.js, and then you can run those applications or schedule those applications. SAP has a service for this called the SAP Job Scheduler service. What we can do is we can connect to the SAP Job Scheduler service and run then those applications in an event-based manner. And similar to the Job Scheduler service is the scheduling of HANA XSA jobs. This is something where we also have an integration, so you can also run your database jobs, for example, via HANA XSA jobs. So to summarize, the tech challenges are you need to support all the different external applications, plus, of course, the SAP ones. You need also to be able to support file transfer, because many of these things I'm just talking about needs, of course, files to work on data. So you need to be able to transfer files from a container, from a cloud storage system, but also B2B file transfer is important. So you need to support SFTP, FTPS, etc. You need to support all the different cloud applications on BTP, whether it is on the Kyma platform, whether it is on the Cloud Foundry, or it's maybe an IBP applications which you run with BTP templates. Everything should be now event-driven, real-time. So it's not an option anymore to have a daily plan and do some time-based scheduling. This is, of course, still required for some cases, but new cases rely on microservices, and you need to have webhook-based triggers rather than time-based. Observability is getting getting very important, because when you have such an, let's say, complex landscape, then of course you need to monitor all the different applications that you're running. You want to monitor the whole process and see if all the applications are up, what's the health status, and so on. So this is why we have OpenTelemetry now also included in our platform. And the final tech challenge is DevOps. So what we see more and more from customers, and also from the very big ones we have, is that they want to run or create their jobs in a DevOps approach. So they don't want to log into any GUI. So they want to have all the definitions uploaded to GitHub in, of course, not anymore XML format. That's important. It needs to be JSON or YAML. Otherwise, the developers will not talk to you. So you need to be able to upload those stuff in JSON or YAML format. Then you do changes and then promote them to your next environment directly through GitHub or GitLab or Azure DevOps, what your company is using. I just talked about observability. So observability in our case means that all the components which we have, so the main components of our software is a controller. That's basically the applications where you define your workflows and set up the tasks. So tasks in other systems are called jobs. We call them tasks. Then we have the agent that executes the jobs and workflows. And we have so-called extensions. So extensions are application-specific integrations. So all these components generate telemetry data And when I mean telemetry data, it's really the complete set. So metrics, traces, and log files. So we can combine those data with application data, for example, from your SAP S4HANA system, or from Informatica, or from OpenShift. Like this, we can really monitor and whole workflow, not only from the scheduling point, but also from the applications which we are scheduling. The whole thing you can then display in any open source dashboard like Grafana or Dynatrace as a commercial tool. So these are the two most used ones, but of course also Datadog is important, and Splunk. So all these support OpenTelemetry, and also the SAP components support more and more OpenTelemetry. This is just an example of a dashboard. Maybe what I could do is just, instead of showing you a slide, just give you a very short introduction of how such a dashboard looks like. So this is our OpenTelemetry dashboard in Grafana in this case. So here you can see the status of all our servers, the RAM users, and so on. So basic IT data that you can see. But in addition to the IT data, you can also have your UC dashboard giving you information about the current costs of your scheduling, because we schedule via the number of instances that you use with our software. You have the cluster cost of your OpenShift cluster, because this customer runs actually OpenShift workloads, so he sees how much these costs are. So you can monitor external applications, you can monitor our controller, and you get all the information about the task, how many tasks have been started in the last 24 hours, for example, the email tasks and so on. You see which task types. And what's also important is the log file of our software is streamed directly into via OpenTelemetry. So this is in real time streamed, so you always can see the log file of our controller, and you can also see the trace data. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. Okay. Yeah, so now let's talk a bit more about SAP functionality, because this is our main topic for today. So the key things what we can do with Universal Automation Center, or the SAP functionality, is achieved via our so-called SAP connector. Our SAP connector is RISE certified, and of course also S4HANA certified, and can connect to all the different ERP systems from SAP, whether they're in the cloud, whether they're in RISE or on-premise. So all three are connected by the same connector. You will later on see also a picture on this, and you can run your ABAP programs, retrieve the system logs, run your process change, info packages. And what's also interesting is you can import the calendars, your SAP calendars, very quickly, and then use those for scheduling. We support also batch input, of course, so for mass transaction, intercept handling is there, and of course event monitor. Important to notice is here, we don't need any transports into the SAP system. This is important, especially when you use RISE, and then it's always tricky that SAP allows you to import, to perform transport into your SAP system. So this is not required with Universal SAP Connector. Everything is without transports. Then we support all the systems around, like BI, business objects, BI. When it comes to a RISE, we support, of course, the same stuff. I just add here some other things like SAP Business Warehouse for HANA, which is supported also, and so on. So all your standard, let's say, SAP scheduling is supported in any of the SAP ERP system, cloud, on-premise, or RISE. Then you have the new technology, the new platform, the BTP platform. For the BTP platform, what we have a job that can run BTP job templates. So these BTP job templates can be data services, S4, or IBP job templates, and you can run those directly from our BTP job template tasks. The job template task is a bidirectional integration. So you can first select from the SAP system which job templates are there, and then you can decide which ones you want to run. While it's running, you get constantly informed about the job logs. You will see it also in the demo, because we are connecting to the SAP event interface there. So it's not just a log file, it's really the events that we get and show in the BTP, on our BTP task job log. Then we also support Databricks. So we have several customers using SAP, using Databricks, our database tasks, And SAP Databricks is something which I think will come strong in the near future, because that's the main thing that SAP highlighted at the, as I said, in the Sapphire in Madrid 2 weeks ago. We support the Cloud Foundry. So Cloud Foundry, that means you, for example, have your own application. To give you just an example for such an application, can be a Node.js application that exports your material management data and then sends it to an external application for further analytics. And this is a Node.js application which you can then schedule in real time via our Universal Automation Center. To schedule the SAP Cloud Foundry, we use the SAP scheduling service. SAP Kyma is a Kubernetes platform. So this is something where we are at the moment developing a distinct task only for the Kyma platform. We have this already for OpenShift, GKE, EKS, and OpenShift. So we will have soon also one for SAP Kyma, and then you can run all your Kubernetes jobs on the Kyma platform. Yeah, now we have the SAP connector. Just one word to the RISE connectivity, because that's asked by many customers. So first of all, it's certified, it's RISE certified. I think we were one of the last to certify our connector. So the certification is valid for quite some time now, will be valid in the future for a long time. Then we can connect to the via RFC, and the RFC connection, of course, can be SNC encrypted. Mostly customers are using not the default SAP libraries, but using things for example, from CyberSafe to connect to SAP via SNC. The SAP agent can be installed on any server, so it does not need to be installed on the application server. So, so you can install it on, for example, a Linux machine or a Windows machine, and then you can connect to your SAP RISE system. You can also install it on any container, so it will run also on OpenShift, where we also certified, so you can run the connector in OpenShift and then connect from there to the SAP system. This we tested also recently on a POC at a customer. Then actually, when it comes to the connection itself, we support all the different connections like load balancer, application server, via the SAP router. We connect through the BTP platform via HTTPS APIs. And of course, we can also connect to the HANA database via direct JDBC, ODBC connection, but also through HANA XSA jobs, which you can create. To connect to the SAP system, we also support SFTP and so on. Yeah, when it comes to the running the applications on Cloud Foundry, or then we use the so-called SAP job scheduling service. Therefore, we are in direct contact also with SAP, and they help us also in building a nice integration for this. So what does it give in addition to the standard SAP job scheduling service? When you use our integration, then you cannot only do, let's say, standard time-based scheduling with cron or with, let's say, workdays, but we can really support full calendar-based scheduling with SAP calendars. You can have event-based scheduling of your Cloud Foundry jobs. For example, if a file arrives based on a message queue or webhook events, for example. Yeah, so here's the first poll question.
All right, so the first poll question is, have you already migrated to RISE with SAP S4HANA Cloud? It's either yes, no, or we plan to migrate in the near future. I will give everyone another second to answer the poll. All right, I'm going to close the poll. All right, so it looks like 62% said no, they have not already migrated to RISE.
Okay, so, but that's quite a huge number that already is migrating to RISE, no? So that's 39, no? Yeah, or 38. Okay. Yep. So then at least I think the topic is interesting. So if we have quite a high number, then I have another poll question.
All right, are you using applications deployed on SAP BTP, such as Integrated Business Planning, IBP? Yes, no, or we plan to use BTP apps in the near future. All right, we'll give it another second for everyone to put their responses in. Looks pretty close. All right, I'm going to close the poll. Wow, it's pretty close. 30% said yes, 36% said no, and 33% said they plan to in the near future.
Okay, I think that's a good answer. So I think then what we have implemented makes sense, because I think then you need to use these applications that you can run them in real time. Yeah, so one last thing before we do the demos. This is actually the SAP dynamic job scheduling, which we are doing with cloud. So this is something which we are at the moment implementing, and but it's almost ready. So this is why I quickly wanted to present it. So what happens is when you have a high load of SAP jobs, then and run those jobs in parallel, then it can happen that your SAP system gets slowed down. And this is especially crucial when the dialog process utilization goes down. You might think of that the dialog process, that's basically the one for the CRM systems, that should not be affected by background jobs, but that's actually not the case, because if you use so-called parallel jobs, then it can happen that those jobs also use the dialog processes to cover these what's called the problem of the short night. So what we are doing now, we are using Cloud ALM. So Cloud ALM is the monitoring solution which you can use from SAP. We are monitoring the health status of the dialog and workup processes. And if they get critical, then Cloud ALM will send us a webhook event, because Cloud ALM has a nice webhook, can send webhook events very nicely. So we retrieve these webhook events. And as soon as we retrieve it, then we reduce the number of SAP jobs that we run in parallel. When the situation gets good again, then Cloud ALM, you can configure also an alert when it falls below a threshold. Then we increase the job schedule, the parallel jobs again. We can also select the jobs which we want to reduce, because there might be some jobs which we give a very high priority, which we will never want to throttle down, so that you can configure in our system. So like this, you can dynamically control how the SAP jobs are scheduled, and you don't need to always, let's say, 50 and that's it. 50 in parallel, for example. No? So you choose the number of parallel jobs based on the load on the SAP processes, worker processes and dialog processes. This is something which will come up soon, and it should be only configuration in our system, so it will for sure work. So that's the last one. So because Cloud ALM might be something which you're not using yet, but I guess you might use it in the future, or maybe.
All right, the next poll. Are you using SAP Cloud ALM COM? Yes, no, or we plan to use in the future? Sorry, the last question should say we plan to use ALM in the near future.
Yeah. Yes, also.
All right. Let's give it one more second. All right, it looks like 74% said no, they are not using SAP Cloud ALM.
Okay, I think that's quite okay at the moment, because it's something which SAP I think is now pushing, but they just started to really roll it out at the mass product. But it's really very powerful. And okay. So let me go to my demo. So before we do the demo, I just have one slide. And on this slide, actually, I want to show you that when you schedule SAP jobs, it's not just ABAP, it's not just business warehouse. It's really the whole set of applications which are there in a bigger SAP workflow. So we have some customers that have more than 400 steps in an SAP workflows, connecting to all kinds of different products. So sometimes we need to connect to a mainframe. So we have a big insurance in Switzerland that connects to the mainframe and retrieves data from there, which is required. Then we need to connect to a different cloud service provider, Amazon, Azure, or also your private cloud providers. You need to support a DevOps approach. You need to roll out maybe infrastructure as a service. Maybe the disk does not have enough space, so you need to roll out increase the disk size automatically. you need to run all kinds of data analytics solutions, also data analytics solutions which are not directly from SAP. And there might be a lot of business apps which you need to connect, maybe open a ticket in ServiceNow, PagerDuty, Slack, Teams, etc. So your solution needs to cover all these different systems, not replacing them, but orchestrating them, integrating them into your workflow. And as an example for this, I've created a workflow in my SAP, in my Universal Controller, to show you how this works. So this is our Universal Automation Center. And the Universal Automation Center is very simple. It mainly has tasks. So task is what you execute, maybe an SAP ABAP job, or a task can be that you run a file transfer from AWS to Azure, or it can be running a Databricks jobs. So these are called tasks. Then you have workflows. This is what you see as a workflow. Workflow, actually, you can build dependencies between the tasks. So these arrows means success, for example. So after this transfer is done, then it starts, for example, the variable scan here. And then you have the other things like calendars, script library, and so on. But the main thing is really the task and the workflows and the triggers that start all these things. So when it comes to the triggers, we have all kinds of triggers. So you have time triggers, of course, but you have also task monitor triggers. You have webhook triggers, variable monitor triggers. So you can trigger basically workflows and tasks in any way you can think of. Now you can even connect to a message queue, an SQS message queue, and then when a message is there, then run the workflow. Then you can have, as you can see, you have all these different tasks here. So for the task, we have integrations for really many of the products which are in the cloud or SAP native. So these are just the ones that I've loaded into my controller at the moment. So you see there's a ServiceNow task, an IBP task, PagerDuty, Power BI. So we have really lots of tasks which you can just drag and drop into your workflows. If something is missing, you can just go to the integration hub here and then search for the task that you are interested in. And then you can add it to your workflow. And this workflow I'm going to show you is quite a complex use case. So it reads data from a SharePoint. As soon as data arrives on a SharePoint folder, then the workflow kicks off. And in this workflow, we are then streaming data from the SharePoint, which we have uploaded to an S3 Data Lake. In parallel, we are also streaming data from an Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage, also cloud storage, to the same data lake. And finally, we are also transferring data from the mainframe, so from ZOS mainframe to an Amazon Linux server in the cloud. And once this data is arrived, then we are transferring this data from the mainframe to a Kubernetes pod. I took this use case because we have a customer that's doing this exactly, to the Kubernetes pod. Once it's in the pod, then we run a Kubernetes job. So it can be a Kaima job, for example, an SAP Kaima job that runs some bonus calculations. Once all the data is in the data lake here, in the S3 data lake, then I'm asking for a Slack approval because I'm doing this before I run all these complex calculations. So I run a Databricks jobs based on the data which we retrieved. I run a Synapse pipeline which runs a notebook in Azure Synapse for some machine learning. I run an AWS Glue job. And finally, once all this data is calculated and analyzed, then I refresh the Power BI dashboard. In parallel to all this stuff, I'm also loading some data in the SAP system via this SAP task here. So that's an SAP job I'm running. Then I'm running some bonus models on these bonus calculations on this data, on this sales data, also based on ABAP programs. After this is done, then I run an SAP Data Services job on the BTP platform. And I run finally an IBP job on the BTP platform to run some analytics on this data. Okay, so let me throw in some data in my SharePoint. So I go to my SharePoint. Okay, the SharePoint I've put here. Okay, so this is my SharePoint. So I upload this new sales data from June 2025. New seller data uploaded to SharePoint. And then you will see that this SharePoint monitor will identify immediately that the file was uploaded. You see it went to success. Now it starts already the file transfer from SharePoint to S3, the file transfer task is a streaming task. So there's no intermediate storage. And it's all the file transfers from cloud to cloud, from on-prem storage. It's very simple. So the only thing that you need to know is the source storage system. That's OneDrive in this case. The target, that's S3. Of course, the credentials and all the stuff. Then the source file path, target file path, and what you want to transfer. As filter, you can use regular expressions, match pattern, even combine those. So it's very, very powerful, this stuff. And you can do a dry run, so you can try the file transfer before you run it, and it will really try out the current data transfer rate. You see the data has already arrived in the S3 Data Lake. The file transfer from the mainframe is actually running at the moment. And before I start all these analytics processes here, there was a message, Slack message required. So you see, this is my Slack message appeared. Normally I show this on my mobile. In this case, I would just show it here on the Slack app. So if I approve it, then you see this is also webhook triggered, of course. Then you see immediately goes to success. And now the processing of SAP Databricks starts to run some machine learning jobs. The Synapse pipeline has been started and so on. In parallel, what I have here is the SAP workflow. So it's similar like classical SAP workflow. So first of all, I load the data into the SAP system. I put this job on hold only for the demo. Of course, normally this would automatically go. No? Now I start the SAP job. While an SAP job is running, you can always query the job. So you can always go here and say retrieve output, and then it shows you the output as the SAP system. So it says load seller data to SAP successfully created. And if I press refresh, yeah, it's all real. So it will take some time. So you see now the job has been started, and you see also the message already loading seller data and the time and so on. Then you see here as a next job is actually a workflow, because what we can do is we can transform automatically a multi-step job into a workflow. This I've done here with step 1, step 2, step 3. And there is a failure in this workflow. And as soon as there's a failure, I automatically generate a ticket. In this case, I generate the ticket in PagerDuty. And you see it has already been triggered, the ticket in PagerDuty. And let me click on this. Sorry, 1 second. I just need to. So there it is. That's the latest one. So there you see it, has automatically generated. This can also be done for ServiceNow. I'm just showing PagerDuty because I have another ServiceNow demo also. So you see here, this is already the log file. So SAP logon error, name or password is incorrect. So you see the SAP log file in your PagerDuty. And then you can click here. This gives you directly the link to the tasks that failed in Universal Automation Center. So you don't need to search anything when you're on ITSM guy. You directly get to the failure. And okay, in this case, I know the failure because I put the wrong credentials for the demo. So I put now the correct credentials and I say save it. Now, after you've corrected the error, you can tell this PagerDuty guy, please rerun the workflow. So I can go here and say rerun this job. And this is also webhook based. So PagerDuty will me now send an event, says, I've rerun this job. Please provide me the information about this job. So you will see this interface is bidirectional. So after, I think it takes around 10 seconds, that's how long this job runs. You will see that the message from the SAP system comes also back to PagerDuty. So you can really stay in PagerDuty to monitor your resolve of the incidents. You see, there is the message coming back from the SAP system, and bonus model was now okay. Okay, and you see also the job is now success. This job I've skipped because this runs only on Sunday. I use so-called run criteria. So I can say certain jobs should only run at a certain time. In this case, this one runs only on Sunday. Now, the next one starts. I explained to you before that you control the number of jobs that run in parallel. In this case, I configured that 2 jobs should run in parallel, and the others would wait until these 2 jobs are finished. This then will be controlled dynamically via Calm in the new solution, so that we can say run as many jobs as in parallel as possible with the current SAP worker process load. You see now 2 are running. As soon as these 2 are finished, then the next 2 would be started. And I've assigned these, our so-called virtual resource, only to specific jobs which start with commission, because those ones should be throttled down. As you can see now, the other 2 are running. And this one will also not run because this one runs only at the month's end. So these run criteria for jobs, I can give very specific rules. Okay, now the jobs are finished. So now I can go back to the main workflow. In the main workflow, what we can always calculate is a critical path. This is done in real time and all the time when the workflow is running. So it shows you always how long this workflow would run until it reaches this task. So I mark this Power BI refresh task as my critical endpoint. You can have multiple endpoints if you want to calculate multiple critical paths. In this case, I just mark this one as critical endpoint because this is for me crucial that this Power BI refresh should run until the end of the day, for example. And it's constantly calculating these critical paths while it's running. Now I switch it off. Now you see here, the SAP ABAP jobs have been run. The data services agent has been checked. Now the data services cloud task is running. And while this is running, after this is finished, then it will run the IBP job. And the IBP job is, it's always the same job, the data services job in this case. So let me wait until the data service job is finished. You see it's finished now, it's running the IBP job. So let me retrieve the output. You can see that the first event was already retrieved from the SAP system. So just step 1 was launched. Now you see step 2 was launched and step 1 is finished. So you see while the entire job is running, you can really monitor what is happening in your IBP system. Okay, now this is all done. So now the last task is running. That's the Power BI refresh task. Yeah, this takes always a bit longer because yeah, Power BI is not that quick there. Oh, maybe I show you the result of the Power BI refresh at the end when this is finished. Let's see. Oh, wait another 10 seconds. Yeah, I think maybe I've loaded too much data to the tables. So Power BI has a refresh. Now it's there. The refresh was successful. Now I can directly click on here in the task, and it will show you the Power BI refresh dashboard, which has been refreshed. And there you see, this is the refresh Power BI dashboard. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is our so-called self-service portal. So let me open this self-service portal. So what you just saw was more the GUI for the operations team and more for the technical people. What we have new now is a so-called universal portal. That's our latest product. The universal portal, you can log in via single sign-on, same as with the controller. So I'm logging in with Microsoft and Terra in this case. Choose my user. And now I'm logged into the nice universal portal. So this one runs perfectly on any mobile device because it uses a responsive design and it's based on React, so latest framework technology. And it also follows the 4-button principle. So that means when you use it on the mobile, you can really, with your thumb, get to all the different buttons. So these are these big buttons that you can use with your thumb. It's made for really very easy use. So you can have the standard filters like show me all the jobs from the last 4 hours, last 24 hours, last 48, last 7 days. Then you can directly see which jobs are running. So you can click here, you can say which are done. You can filter based on the type, if it's an SAP job, based on the business service. So business service is like our internal tenant concept. For example, if I want to, let's say, schedule for Sapphire and then type SAP. So then you see this job that we just ran. So I just ran this SAP RISE multi-step job. You see all the definition of the job. So which connection was used. In this case, it uses this target server. This is the RISE connection. Then the application log can be viewed here, and so on. The different steps. So in this case, the ABAP program which I'm running was ABAP local list. This was a variant I was running. And you can also retrieve directly from here the output. So if I click here, it will retrieve the ZAP output, including the job log, directly into the self-service client. In addition, what you can do is you can schedule from here. So you can enable triggers, like, for example, enable daily trigger, or that you can do directly from here. You can enable also the monitors. Maybe you saw the webhook monitor, which we used. or the SharePoint monitor you can enable from here. What you can also do is you can also have some nice things, and that's important. So at the moment I have only German language or English language, but in the next release, and we are already working on this, you will also see other languages like Dutch or French. So I'm happy that German is there, but still I'm usually normally using the English mode. You have also a calm mode. I think that's something which you need to have in every new product now. So that's a bit better for your eyes in this case. The nice thing also with the universal portal is that it goes on to the same server than the universal controller. So you don't need to install any additional server like in many other softwares. It's really our simple installation. Just install one server, the agents, and that's it. Yeah, last thing I want to show you, because that was a self-service which I think every controller user can use for their business teams. We have another one, and this is the so-called service catalog in ServiceNow. So I think most of you would use ServiceNow, I guess. So what you can do is you can, I just need to log in. Sorry, I need to, let's go quick second. So, okay, so I from the service catalog, I select now the UAC. So I'm in ServiceNow now, and within ServiceNow, I can now schedule jobs. I can, for example, create an SAP job, create a task, create a Linux task, rerun a failed task. So all the major actions related to tasks you can directly do from ServiceNow. And when you create, for example, an SAP job, then you even have the possibility, of course, you need to give the job name, the ABAP name, and so on, but you can also schedule the job. So you can say schedule the job, and then you can give also, for example, schedule this day daily, specific days on times, and also if it's an interval or it's an absolute time. So for example, you can say schedule this job daily at 11 o'clock. So then when you submit this job, then it will automatically create an SAP job with a trigger, in this case, a daily trigger in your universal controller. So this is something nice, and we are working on at the moment. And I think by mid of July, we will have this also in the ServiceNow catalog, so everybody can download this and and use it. So that's officially in the a certified application in ServiceNow. Yeah, so that was another demo. The last demo, if I still have 2 minutes left, I wanted to show you is jobs as code, because I think that's also an important topic, and I just wanted to show it very quickly. It will not take long. I think you saw this workflow that you have here, and let's say, and this is the often use case. Let's say this bonus model, which is called here in the SAP task. So if I go to the jobs tab, then I see it's called that run bonus 003. So let's say a developer has developed a new version called 3B. So how can you update this without going to the GUI? So what you can do is you can go to your GitHub. First of all, you can upload the stuff, the task to GitHub. So there we have a distinct task for this. Once I've uploaded all the jobs, then you see them here directly, the definitions in GitHub. In this case, the job I've uploaded, this is one SAP task, SAP. So this is the definition of this job. So I can go to this definition. Then I can edit the definition. Of course, normally you would not do it directly from here. You would do it from your Visual Studio Code product, but just for the demo I showed here. And then let's say I want to change the ABAP from 3 to 3B, because that's a new version, for example, of the ABAP with the developers, and then I can commit the change. What's now happening is our webhook listener will receive the GitHub event that the code change has been done, and automatically will update the ABAP program in the universal controller. So if I go back to my universal controller, to this workflow, so I go to I go to tasks, then I go to my workflow, insurance processing, edit, and I go to the number 3. Then it should be now, if everything worked, there should be now the step should be 3B. So it should call a different ABAP, and you see it worked. So like this, it's as you can see, it's very simple. You just change the stuff in your GitHub, adjust it, and then it's automatically downloaded the change to the universal controller and updated here. This all works because we have this monitor, which we call the so-called webhook monitor. In this case, I configured a webhook monitor for jobs as code. So what it does, it retrieves from GitHub, it retrieves all events and then filters these events and checks, is it a push event? Does it come from with this payload? Does it come from this repository? And the landscape PS1, in this case, this is the webhook message I want to receive. Yeah, and then I can do the changes. And in parallel, I also got an email, hopefully. Let me check, I got this email. Yes, there's an email coming. Let me open this. There you see what I've been doing. So that I've changed this one. And this is the file that I've downloaded and so on. You can do everything with jobs as code in our system, even workflows you can configure through GitHub in this case. Yeah, these are the demonstration cases I wanted to show to you. So I think it's important that you take with you that you can run all the standard SAP ABAP programs as you did in the past with variants and so on. But you're also ready to connect, first of all, to SAP RISE, and then also to run all the different applications which are on Cloud Foundry, which are on the Kaimer Kubernetes platform, or BTP applications like IBP or Data Services. So with Stonebranch Universal Automation, you're really ready also for all the new products which are offered now by SAP. Yeah, I think now I'm ready to take your questions.
Okay, we can switch over to the Q&A. All right, so I did ask where everyone was joining from. So we have people joining from Bangalore, Frankfurt, Germany, Houston, Texas, India, Switzerland. Another note that this presentation will be shared after we're done. You will receive an email later today with the recording so that you can rewatch and share. Okay, first question. Can we monitor the events within the SAP system?
Yes, so we have an SAP Event Monitor task, which can monitor your SM62 transactions, and we can also confirm events. So once we have, let's say, received an event or identified an event in the message queue tables, then we can confirm this event. And if there are multiple events, we can say if we want to trigger multiple times the task or only one time this event occurs. And we can also create the criteria profiles within the controller if you want, if you don't want to do this from SAP.
Okay. Our next question, we got our universal agents in Azure Container Platform. Can we use this agent to establish connectivity to SAP?
Yes, absolutely, that's possible. So the trick is you need you install the universal agent in your Azure container, in your pod in this case. The trick is that the libraries, the RFC libraries, which you need to connect to the SAP system, we are not allowed to ship them from Stonebranch side. So those ones you need to put on a shared persistent storage or on a PVC in this case, and then you can directly connect to your SAP system. We tried this already. I tried this already by myself on OpenShift, so it would also work on AKS. And I can also help on this because I've done the setup recently, so I'm happy to support on this.
Okay, great. Is it the same SAP connector for SAP S4HANA and SAP RISE?
Yeah, so we have only one single SAP connector, which is our universal agent, which then connects via RFC. In this case, it's the XPP3 interface, but we of course also support XPP2 if you still want to use it. So we are connecting via this connector to RISE in the same way as we connect to S4HANA, but also to ECC6 system. This is always the same connector, and it doesn't require any agents on the SAP application server. The connection is SNC secured, and we also support for the RISE system. I have some in my demo. I also executed some jobs on the RISE platform, so they usually use the SAP router to connect.
Great. How is SAP ALM connecting to UAC? Is it simply calling the REST API?
Yeah, the interesting thing is we don't need any scripting, at least for this. That's the nice thing. So what we configure, we configure first of all in SAP so-called health monitoring. We configure what we want to monitor. In this case, we want to monitor, for example, the dialog processes. Then we set alerting rules. And once the alerting rules is reached, then SAP Calm has a nice functionality that it can trigger webhook events. Same as you saw in my demo with the GitHub. So if a limit is reached, the webhook event will be received by our webhook receiver. So we create a universal monitor task for Calm in this case. And of course, we filter out only the messages we are interested in. And as soon as we receive the message, then we reduce the throttling. If the and we get another message from Calm when it goes down, when the health status goes in a healthy state again, then we get another message. So you can have both messages. We are using a trick here because Calm supports, for example, Slack. Maybe you've also seen in my Slack demo, they can do a similar thing. They can also send webhook events to Slack, but instead of sending to Slack, they will send it to our webhook endpoint, webhook receiver endpoint. No? So it should be done without any coding. It should be just configuration. And I guess I will have this ready soon. So then I think I can, we can configure on your side also. And it's done together with SAP. No? So SAP itself is supporting us on this because they also like this solution a lot.
Great. Next question. For the connectivity to SAP RISE, do we still need to install something in SAP environment?
No. So you don't need to install anything on the SAP RISE system itself. Everything goes via the RFC connection. So this is completely without installing anything on RISE. What we are trying out at the moment also is that we can, the same way as we do with OpenShift and AKS, we can install also our universal agent in Kaima, so on the SAP BTP platform, and then connect from there to the RISE system. This is something I've not yet finalized, but I hope as soon as this is running, I think that should also work. But to answer the question, we don't need to install anything on the SAP application server. And this is also by most of our customers, they're not installing anything on the application servers from SAP. Sometimes they do because our agents support file transfers very nicely. Of course, we have this agent-to-agent file transfer protocol. And if you would have an agent on your SAP system, then we can transfer directly files to this agent. But for RISE, that's a different story. I think there it should be outside the RISE system.
Okay. Next question. What are the upcoming integrations for SAP BTP platform?
Yeah. So what we have at the moment is the SAP job templates. That's a pretty new one that's already used by several customers, which you can use for IBP Data Services and S4 templates. The new thing what we are at the moment doing is running all the Cloud Foundry applications. So these are normally Node.js applications through the SAP scheduler service. We have already a first version ready for this. So this will still be available, soon be available, I guess, in the integration hub. The other thing is supporting all the Kubernetes platform from SAP on BTP. That's also runs on BTP. So there, this will be also a very good integration. If you use this, I'm sure you will like it because we have a very nice integration to run Kubernetes jobs, which is heavily used by many of our customers. And the other thing is that you can also then install the agent or even the whole controller on the Kaima platform because the controller is also Kubernetes ready.
Okay. Next question. You show the self-service possibilities. Not every user is allowed to use every function. Is that covered?
Yeah. So the nice thing, I think that's one of the most important questions. No? So the nice thing is our universal portal. Maybe you've seen I'm logging into with Entra from Azure. So it's a single sign-on login. However, the authentication, what the user can do, the authorization. So the authentication is done via Microsoft. The authorization, what the user is allowed to do, that's done in our controller. So for each of the self-service user groups, we define what they can do. If they can see the SAP jobs, if they can rerun an SAP job, just to talk about SAP. Of course, you can do it for every job. No? Which jobs he can see. So all the detailed permissions which we have on tasks, jobs, workflows can be done in the same way in the Universal Portal than in the standard GUI. So that's, I think, a very, very important thing.
Great. All right, next question. Is there any AI-related implementations about to happen in the near future?
Yeah, so first of all, when it comes to SAP, was it all SAP? Then SAP has this strong story with Databricks and Joule. And the Databricks task we have already, so at least we can, if you're using, let's say, Databricks AI for your SAP system, then you can run already today the Databricks jobs. And the Databricks job is also very nicely, it gives you all the log files. And we support lots of functionality on the Databricks job. Of course, we also develop our own AI, Roby, we call him, that will come hopefully with the next release, supporting questions about the documentation and creating reports. So asking report which SAP jobs will run tomorrow or have failed today. So this is something which we are developing at the moment, and hopefully soon we will have the first version available.
Great. All right, next question. Does UAC support the collection of OpenTelemetry metrics for SAP job execution to enable centralized observability and monitoring?
Yes, this is something which I think is this is a key feature which is fully supported by our OpenTelemetry solution. However, you need to be careful not to monitoring individual jobs can be very lead to a very high cardinality, how it's called. No? So it's better, let's say, when you use observability to monitor groups. So, for example, let's say all SAP jobs of a certain type. No? So not individual jobs. To monitor individual jobs, I think our monitoring dashboards is the better solution. But for general observability, it works very nicely. To see, for example, with how many jobs have been failed of a certain type in SAP. If it is a very important workflow, we have one customer that calculates commissions for their selling of their goods, then we can monitor this individual workflow. That's possible with observability, but not all the SAP jobs. It needs to be always groupings.
Great. All right, that's all the questions we have. One comment is, if you look in the handouts, you can find the Stonebranch Integration Hub, where all the SAP integrations are linked there. So go ahead and check that out. I just wanted to say thank you, Nils, for sharing how SAP, how Stonebranch can help SAP automation. Thank you, everyone, for joining today, and we will be sending you an email later today with the recording for you to rewatch and share. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot. I hope you like the demos. Not too many demos, but I like demos, so this is.
Thank you, Nils.